Welcome to our journey into the animal kingdom. Today, we are exploring the general characters of Mollusca. Imagine a garden snail, a pearl-making oyster, and a highly intelligent octopus. They look completely different, yet they share a secret biological blueprint. In this lesson, we will uncover that blueprint and learn exactly what makes a mollusk a mollusk. Now that we know we are looking at a wonderfully diverse group of animals, let us understand exactly where their name comes from. The word mollusk comes directly from the Latin word mollis, which literally translates to soft. This perfectly describes their unsegmented, soft bodies, which lack the rigid internal skeletons we are used to seeing in vertebrates. They represent the second largest phylum of invertebrate animals on Earth, right after the arthropods. This massive scale means that these soft-bodied creatures are incredibly successful from an evolutionary standpoint, adapting to survive and thrive in almost every aquatic and terrestrial habitat across our planet. Building on their soft nature, let us look at how these animals develop from a biological perspective. Mollusks are triploblastic, meaning their bodies form from three primary embryonic germ layers during early development. They also possess a true colum, or internal body cavity, though in mollusks, this space is usually reduced to a small area surrounding the heart. Most mollusks start out bilaterally symmetrical, meaning their left and right sides are perfect mirror images of each other. However, some species, like garden snails, actually lose this symmetry as they grow due to a fascinating twisting process of their internal organs called torsion. This brings us to the most important part of our lesson, their shared biological blueprint. Despite their extreme outward differences, almost all mollusks share a fundamental body plan, consisting of three main anatomical parts. First, they have a highly muscular foot, located at their base, which is primarily used for movement, crawling or burrowing. Second, they possess a visceral mass, a central region which safely houses all their vital internal organs. Finally, they have a mantle. This is a heavy, protective fold of tissue that covers the visceral mass, and in many species, secretes the hard, calcium-based shell that protects them from predators. Before we move on, let us see this body plan with a concrete visual example. Here, we have a cross-section of a generalized mollusk. Notice the large, muscular foot at the bottom, designed for crawling. Above it sits the visceral mass, containing the vital organs. Draped over that is the mantle, the tissue responsible for creating the hard outer shell you see at the very top. You can also spot a small structure near the mouth called the radula, which we will explore mathematically very soon. Now that we understand what a mollusk looks like on the inside, let us look at why they matter so much to our world. Mollusks play absolutely critical roles in maintaining the balance of our ecosystems. Filter-feeding bivalves, like oysters and mussels, act as natural water purifiers, cleaning gallons of water daily and keeping our oceans healthy. Economically, they are a massive global food source and produce precious gems like pearls, which have driven human trade for centuries. Furthermore, studying the highly complex nervous systems of cephalopods, like squids and octopuses, helps neuroscientists understand the evolution of intelligence, learning, and memory. Knowing their ecological importance, let us zoom in on exactly how these creatures feed and survive. While biology is mostly descriptive, we can look at specific structures. Many mollusks possess a fascinating, highly specialized feeding organ called a radula. Think of it as a ribbon-like scraping tongue that is completely covered in thousands of tiny backward-facing teeth made of a tough substance called chitin. They use this conveyor belt-like tool to efficiently scrape tough algae off ocean rocks or tear into their prey. Because the exact arrangement of these teeth is unique to different species, biologists use it as a primary tool for taxonomic identification. This unique dental anatomy leads us to a precise mathematical representation. Biologists use the Radula formula to classify and compare species quickly. The formula is T equals 2 times the sum of M and L plus RC. Here, T represents the total number of teeth in one single horizontal row on the radula. M stands for the marginal teeth on one side, and L represents the lateral teeth on one side. Finally, RC is the single central tooth, located right in the middle. If a species evolves to have a more complex diet, the physical values of M and L typically increase, giving them more teeth to scrape or tear food more efficiently. Now that we have our formula, let us apply it to a real-world example. A marine biologist finds a sea snail with 1 central tooth, 3 lateral teeth, and 12 marginal teeth on each side, with 80 rows in total. First, we calculate the teeth in a single row. We add the 12 marginal and 3 lateral teeth to get 15. We multiply by 2 to account for both sides, giving 30, and add the 1 central tooth. This gives us 31 teeth per row. Finally, we multiply these 31 teeth by the 80 rows. The final answer is 2,480 teeth, giving the snail a highly effective scraping tool. Having successfully used the formula, let us take a moment to prove why it is structured this way. The core mathematical reasoning relies on the biological concept of bilateral symmetry. Because the radula is symmetrical, the left and right sides are identical. We group the marginal and lateral teeth on one side as M plus L. To account for the entire width, we simply multiply that sum by 2. Then we add the single central tooth, which sits exactly on the line of symmetry and does not have a pair. This logical addition perfectly maps the physical anatomy into a mathematical equation. So, we have proven how to count radula teeth, but how do we know if an animal is a mollusk in the first place? Biologists frequently face the challenge of identifying completely unknown specimens in the university laboratory or out in the field. To solve this, they rely on a diagnostic checklist based on the general characters we discussed earlier. They carefully check for the hallmark features: the muscular foot, the mantle, the shell, and the soft body. We can actually represent this diagnostic process as a simple, logical, mathematical addition to confirm the animal's taxonomy. This brings us to our conceptual identification formula, which formalizes our checklist. The formula is I equals F plus M plus S plus B. While this is not a strict algebraic equation used for calculation, it perfectly represents our logical diagnostic checklist. Here, the variable I represents a positive, definitive identification of a mollusk. The variables F, M, S, and B represent the confirmed physical presence of the muscular foot, the mantle, the shell, and the soft body, respectively. If you observe an unknown animal and can physically check off these specific traits, adding them together gives you a definitive taxonomic classification. Let us see this checklist in action with a concrete example. A student is given an unknown specimen. They observe a soft, unsegmented body, which gives us our B variable. They see a muscular base for crawling, giving us F. They also note a fleshy tissue secreting a hard shell, providing both M and S. Because it lacks a backbone, we know it is an invertebrate. By applying our conceptual formula, all the required features sum together perfectly. The final conclusion is that the specimen definitively belongs to the phylum Mollusca. We have covered a lot of ground today, so let us review our key takeaways. First, mollusks are a highly diverse group of soft-bodied invertebrates that generally exhibit bilateral symmetry. Second, no matter how different they look, they share a fundamental body plan, featuring a muscular foot, a visceral mass, and a protective mantle. Third, we learned how to mathematically calculate their dental anatomy using the radula formula. Finally, you now know how to use these core traits as a diagnostic checklist to identify any mollusk in the wild. Great job completing this topic.